my efforts to get it back. The police outright refused to help me get that evidence back in Washington State. Homeless tweakers helped me to get it back. I've got recordings with the homeless tweakers while they were helping me to get it back, in addition to when we got it back. Homeless tweakers helped me to do that. Homeless tweakers helped me to get back that evidence. Evidence of child molesters and corruption. And these corrupt individuals get to play on the mentally ill tag, don't they? They played mentally ill to insinuate to the general public that I was schizophrenic. Did Natalie Marie Bollinger, knowing that I was autistic, knowing that I had Tourette syndrome, did Natalie Bollinger explain that part, or did she generalize it by saying mentally ill? I was told that if I explained to these predators that I was mentally ill, and you see that I tried that with Tim Beeson, I was told that if I explained to these predators that I was mentally ill, and they proceeded that they were committing felonies, and yet he proceeded, and yet there were no felonies filed against him. The reason for all of this is because when somebody is an at-risk adult, they are prone to exactly what I have been through. The laws are set up so that developmental disabilities and those with developmental disabilities are protected. What literally all of these people, from Dan Fabert to Layla Johnson, to Kara Johnson Miles, to the Bollinger family, what all of them have done is take advantage of an at-risk adult. What all of them did, every single one of them, was to use the term mentally ill to pretend one type of disability was another. They had to pretend I was schizophrenic so that they could deny me my rights, whereas they would have had to give me rights if they'd have had to tell people that I was autistic instead of telling them that I was mentally ill. Even with all the documentation that proves that what Natalie Bollinger said was untrue. Even with irrefutable proof that we were friends, that I was invited, that it wasn't just her that I went to see, that I wasn't able to go see all the rest of these people because I was too broke after going up to help Jamie Curtis move out of James Payton's house. And James Payton to this day admits that. He admits that he was there to help. That's right, James Payton helped to move Jamie Curtis out of his house. He admits that Todd Rust was there. He admits that Todd Rust's new wife and her kids were there. While Todd Rust wants to be all loose-lipped, or all tight-lipped, I'm sorry. You're seeing how the laws only exist on paper. You get to see how these people, even after I tell them repeatedly, and you get to hear that repeatedly in my conversations, irrefutable proof. And yet you won't look at it. You want to pretend it didn't happen, or you want to make every excuse why it's magically okay. Magically, Natalie Marie Bollinger, who is mentally ill and suicidal, she was suicidal from abuse. Her mental illness was post-traumatic stress disorder. From being raped by her dad, from being blown off by her mom, from being raped by her Uncle Troy, Her twin sister, Alicia Bollinger, was her hero, the one person who actually tried to do the right thing about Ted Bollinger and what he was doing to her and her sister primarily. Natalie was the favorite prize for that. When a predator has multiple children and they want to victimize them, they're going to have a favorite. Natalie was the favorite. You can see plainly, the evidence itself shows that I was not allowed to go to these court dates, and the judges themselves made excuses, claiming I hadn't tried. No, I was denied access to try. The efforts that I did make were ignored. You pretended that they didn't happen. There were other people involved in every single one of those efforts. I needed those people's help because I don't have a voice because of the term mentally ill. Because it is so easy to manipulate those words into something that they're not. That it is so easy for people to call you mentally ill and to insinuate to the general public that you're schizophrenic, and they won't listen to a word you say after that. As a victim of sexual assault and abuse as a child, I have first-hand experience in what these girls have to go through and what these boys have to go through and the differences. But you won't hear my experience. Now, these professionals, their excuse for not doing their jobs as mandated reporters is that in their experience, it doesn't work. Well, just because it doesn't work in your experience does not mean that you're not mandated to do so. You're not mandated to actually make that effort. Yes, by law you are. And in a timely and efficient manner. But you didn't, did you? As Marcia Estrada can admit that she literally made zero effort to turn any of that stuff in until her ignoring the situation, especially Penny Cooper. Ignoring the situation with Penny Cooper. And Penny Cooper not doing her job as an actual advocate. Unlike Megan Misogidis, who is a volunteer, who is using the advocate title incorrectly. Penny Cooper is paid to do that job. She is ordained by the state to do that job. It is mandatory for her to do that job. Because she accepts, and because that company accepts your funding, your taxpayer dollars. Yes, Penny Cooper's job was to do the things that she outright refused to do. Her job absolutely was to do the things that Marcia Estrada told me that she was going to have Penny Cooper do. And Penny Cooper, either A, Marcia Estrada never told her, or B, Penny Cooper simply didn't give a shit and still wasn't willing to do her job. Once they ignored it to the point that I had to flee for my own safety and for my sister's safety and for my niece's safety, had to flee Dual County, had to flee where Region 1 has their power, to Region 2, where Veronica Bruce worked. And again, I'm having to go to Veronica Bruce's boss, just like I had to go to Penny Cooper's boss. Just like I had to go to Jordan Anderson's boss. Just because I had to go to Officer Ryan's boss. I had to go to their bosses, and their bosses protected them. Same thing with Cindy Taylor. And you can hear in the conversations with Marcia Estrada, oh, very clearly. It wasn't just Cindy Taylor that she spoke about It was also Jen Beebe, and she was not impressed with Jen Beebe. It was also Tamara. All of these people that you want to pretend, and the courts want to pretend, don't exist. They have to pretend that these people don't exist, even though there is irrefutable evidence that these people exist. How can they literally keep all of that evidence out of court? Because none of these people tried to make police reports. None of them went in with me for my safety. Especially right at the very beginning, when it actually made a difference. When did Molly Smith finally try to go in with me? She was the first one to actually make an honest effort to go in with me to talk to the police. And she didn't know shit about the situation. She's learned quite a bit more since. She's been an active participant in many of my efforts that you want to claim that I'm schizophrenic about. That's because she needs to come forward in court. And that's difficult to do. And a lot of y'all, you say I'm just making excuses for my predators. That, like with Molly Smith. I had a conversation in person with somebody about Molly Smith in Chapel, Nebraska, claiming that she was taking advantage of me because she hadn't come forward and that she didn't really have knee surgery. No, she absolutely did have knee surgery. She absolutely did. She absolutely did have an allergic reaction to the cement that they'd put into it. And some of you are going to pretend like I'm crazy for saying they put cement in. I want you to look up surgical cement before you try pretending that I'm crazy for saying that. You go out of your way to pretend anything that I say is crazy. Because I'm educated, because I know, and because I have first-hand knowledge of the experience, it doesn't matter if you call me crazy. My words do matter. My predators, including law enforcement, played on the mentally ill tag to deny me my rights. To pretend like I was crazy, like nothing that I said was true, despite irrefutable proof that I had gone to these people repeatedly. And these people, despite the fact that they want to be silent when I ask them the important questions, when I asked Marcia Estrada how long in between when I brought these crimes to you and when you actually turned them in, literally almost a year later. Well, half a year later. Because see, Marcia Estrada, she became my mental health worker while I was in Scottsbluff jail after I was released from prison. So it wasn't a whole heck of a lot of time, was it? When did she finally try to turn this stuff in? Well, let's see. I was released from prison in, I want to say August of 2021. So, to September, to October, to November, to January. What was it? January, I believe, that she finally tried to turn it in. Now, don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. I may be right about the dates, but I'm right about the event. And the dates, everything is time and date stamped, so it's easy to go back and find it and prove what order it happened in. But how do you do that with evidence that doesn't exist? Where you want to believe somebody who is actually addicted to heroin and methamphetamines, who is, quote-unquote, mentally ill, and her words are treated as if they are irrefutable evidence that these things happened. And they're not. They're just words. They're just claims. The evidence shows that her claims are untrue. That the things that she pretended after she got busted lying. All of these people do that. All of them. When you victimize a disabled person, all of you motherfuckers backtrack and play victim because you know you can get away with it. All of you. You are the statistics. You are the reason that people prey on us and get away with it so easily. Laura Nelson is the reason that autistic people are victimized so easily. It's not the predators. It's not. It's the fact that no one does anything about the predators. Like these sexual predators like Ted Bollinger and Troy Bollinger. That family did everything they could to protect Ted and Troy at the expense of Natalie Bollinger and at my expense and at all of your expense, because Ted Bollinger is absolutely a danger to the public. There's irrefutable evidence that I have been in these situations that I'm in. This is my house. You can pretend that I am in a mansion all you want. A lot of you guys, you want to use the things that people did good for me to pretend like I'm a bad person. Like, of course, Dallas's house. You guys want to pretend that I had a house of my own and a safe place. No, I didn't. That was Dallas's house. And the volatility due to alcoholism, not his. He wasn't volatile when drinking. He was depressed as fuck and fucking self-loathing and self-pity. Making no actual effort to improve his situation. Do you know why Dallas was able to make his payments most of the time that I was there? He got depressed and stopped going to work, didn't try to get a job. Just got drunk and played video games. And every time I'd pay him rent money, he'd tell me it was too much. Well, I made sure that I paid him enough. I paid him less than I felt it was worth. With the volatility in these environments, I had to wait in most of these situations for the people who were trying to help me to leave. I couldn't make any calls during the day with Shannon Alvarado there because of the fears that she had that she would be targeted if somebody heard her daughter in the background. That she would be targeted by CPS. Targeted by the police, not targeted by the Natalie Bollinger people. But of course, you got people like Dan Favorite. Almost everyone wanted to throw in my face all of the wonderful things that they had done for me. Things that I was treated like I was schizophrenic for saying. Things that they wrote down the opposite of in court. The fact that you guys called me a liar when I repeated what was written by police in my court records, in my court paperwork. There is irrefutable evidence that those officers did say those things that you call me a liar for repeating. Why is it these officers got away with that? Because you never came forward. Despite me begging you repeatedly, you claim that it wouldn't do any good. I have the evidence. I need you to verify the evidence or they're going to pretend you don't exist. Marcia Estrada made zero effort to turn these crimes in. Zero. Between when I first started meeting with her in the Scottsbluff jail when I was released from prison and when I finally had to flee. I had to flee that area because of the abuse by people like Robert Franklin Warnick. Ongoing abuse that I made people aware of. There is irrefutable evidence that he is a convicted, registered sex offender in the state of Nebraska. And I told you that he would try to play on the fact that he was a registered sex offender to pretend like he was a victim, playing off the hate crime. Something that us homeless, who endure more hate crimes than all other people in America combined times 5. The reason for this is because you don't listen to us. Our representatives, if they're homeless, you're not going to hear them either. If they're not homeless, they're not going to know what to say. They're not going to fight for us. They're not going to have that vested interest. Not unless they're people like Mr. Garrett. This white guy had a black wife in a wheelchair. Was it a BLM rally to try to fight for the rights of his wife, who was in a wheelchair, and he was murdered for it. Garrett Foster. When you guys with BLM want to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse, pretend like white people are against you. Kyle Rittenhouse. I say to you, Garrett Foster. We're not all your enemies. Garrett Foster. The reason that I say not to kill, it's not that it won't do any good. You'll just have to kill a lot of people for it to do any good. And that's what I'm against. Speaking up beforehand works a lot better than trying to clean up the mess after. And that's where Megan Messigatis' frustration comes from. She's trying to clean up a mess that other people were supposed to do something about. People who are paid to do those jobs. People like the police. People like Marcia Estrada. People like Penny Cooper. People like Jen Beebe. People like Tamara. People like Kara Heller. People who are paid to do these things. But like I said, these people, all of these people whose job it is to do these things are also paid by the very government that is victimizing us. These people have a vested interest in keeping their fucking jobs. They have a vested interest in keeping themselves out of prisons, because when they had a choice between their legal obligations as mandated reporters or making the excuse that it doesn't work, they wanted to risk their jobs in order to not risk their jobs. Well, now their jobs, their licenses, also fines and imprisonment. So they made the wrong choice. And those of you who I fought for your rights and later on you wanted to kick me in the teeth, I'm still fighting for your rights. I will not pretend that Zaid Atkinson wasn't victimized. He absolutely was. But it wasn't because of the color of his skin. It's because the cops fucked up. They thought he was homeless. If he'd been homeless, they would have gotten away with it. By the time they realized he wasn't homeless, they were already too invested and decided, well, that they weren't going to backtrack. They should have backtracked at that point. Those officers should have had a strategic withdrawal, like Megan Messigatis did, like Marcia Estrada did, like Shannon Alvarado did. You fucked up. If you're not going to admit that you fucked up, you should probably withdraw. Otherwise, you are in for one hell of a fight. And look what happened. They did not withdraw. When they realized that they were wrong, rather than admit that they were wrong, they proceeded with the immoral and illegal actions that they had started with. They decided that even with the emergence of new information, that they were going to proceed with the crimes that they started committing because they assumed he was homeless. the conversations between Darren O'Connor and I, as well as Zaid Atkinson's complete 180 between the first times that he spoke up and when BLM wanted to play the black narrative. Because BLM played the black narrative, though, people cared. If they'd have pulled the police narrative that the police victimize the homeless, there would have been a lot of support, a lot more support for the police. Well, except that the police did not withdraw when they should have. They did not concede defeat as they should have. Now, Zaid Atkinson, if he'd have tried to play on the homeless card, he'd have never won. Nobody cares about the homeless. What the police did to Zaid Atkinson, you can see that people, when I make a mention of how the police treat the homeless, and about how this man was treated in that way, you can see in the way that they type that they have complete and utter disdain for the homeless. That shows right there that if Zaid Atkinson had actually tried to take this on with the truth, he would have lost. These people would have made every excuse for the Boulder Police Department, because the Boulder Police Department thought that this was a homeless person. And we all know that homeless people are a danger to society. They're all rapists and child molesters, aren't they? They're all drug dealers and meth addicts, aren't they? Now let's go through all my hospital paperwork that I've been trying to get with a steady address. Gotta have a steady address. A lot of that hospital paperwork was sent to places that I don't have that access, like the hospital paperwork that was sent to Lana and Amanda's house. By the way, they claim they sent that stuff out, and I have the paperwork itself, with the paperwork itself filled out and not sent in. How can they claim they did? Maybe they sent it across the fax. But at the same time, if they did do those things, with what the cops said, that none of these people tried to help. No, they did. They made a lot of effort. A lot of effort for everything except going to the cops. Everything except making a police report. The ones who claimed that they tried to turn it into the cops and tried to make a police report were fucking silent ass crickets. Now, when I repeated what the police said, just like when I repeated what Jamie said, yeah, I'm the bad guy for repeating it. Jamie's not the bad guy for trying to insinuate it from the beginning, knowing that it wasn't true. Now, these police officers said it in court. If you're going to tell me, and that's irrefutable proof right there, when I repeat what these officers said in court, all of these people want to call me a liar. Well, you didn't call the cops liars, did you? Then you want to say it's not your fault that they cut me off from turning these things in. It's not your fault. You're right, it's not your fault. However, your testimony, your evidence shows that what they did was immoral and illegal, including those judges and those public pretenders. That absolutely what I had said about those scenarios was the truth. But you want to be angry that I posted it on the internet. I'm still being abused, mind you. You don't want to hear it because you're angry that I showed that I told the truth. So you choose to victimize me for telling the truth. You did tell me those things. You also did try to destroy evidence by claiming that it was a privacy violation. You thought that was going to work. You thought that claiming that I was slandering you and then calling it a privacy violation was going to destroy the evidence. Well, when it didn't destroy the evidence, what do I have? Irrefutable evidence number 1, that you claimed you didn't. Number 2, that you claimed it was slander. And number 3, that I was telling the truth. But then, after you got busted, lying and misleading the situation, then you are heavily invested at that point in preventing people from looking at it. You know that it's up there now. You know that you're not going to get it taken down. You know that your words are stuck there for eternity. So then you try to help anybody else out. Any of my other predators. Now you'll finally work together. See, like with Alyssa Rainwater, she couldn't work together with Miss Peaches. Her and Miss Peaches wanted to argue with each other and call each other bitches and stuff like that. I was trying to get them to work together. That's the only way that I can communicate with Miss Peaches. All right, I'm going to read some comments here now because they're coming up, and I always try to let you guys be interactive if I can, as long as you're not being trolls. As long as you're not going out of your way to lie and claim that this evidence doesn't exist, or to say that evidence that I've already posted, you say, well, prove it, prove it, prove it. I already have. And if I take my time to try to prove it to more of these trolls who aren't going to share that evidence, they're just going to make excuses no matter what, I don't mind sharing it. But I'm not going to fucking let them trolls sit around and antagonize me and manipulate the words into something that they're not. Between listening to my predator's rendition of it and listening to the actual videos, please listen to the videos before making your decisions. Spiritualized typed, I had cement in my knee for 3 months. I almost died from infection. Spiritualized typed, I just subscribed to you, but I'm curious to catch up. I heard you speak of MMIW. I have been trying to get my channel up to speak of exactly that. Say hello, I'm Shelly. Spiritualized, Miss Shelly, I got you. I got you. My channel isn't just about MMIW, it's about all victims. All victims regardless of color. All victims regardless of gender. All of the victims. The black victims, the white victims, the homeless victims, the victims in houses. All of the victims. If you let me know about missing people, and you send me some screenshots, or you just type it to me, if all you do is type it to me, then I'll speak up what you tell me on my YouTube channel, and we can do it that way until you're able to get your channel up. I wasn't able to get my channel up. I mean that. I couldn't do it. I had to enlist the help of Jerry Sparks and Amanda Ingline to get my YouTube channel up and running, because with my technical abilities, I couldn't. I don't have the technical abilities. If I had to make another YouTube channel, and I do have one, it's called See Justice Prevail. That one I don't use. There's several pieces of information and evidence on my channel, though, there. The disappearance of Alicia Bollinger. Several disappearances from her on that channel. The first two. The third one I spoke up about when I was in Rapid City, South Dakota, seeing what's her name? Jamie Curtis. God, there's a lot of names to remember, ain't there? You see how often I say Sarah Nelson when I mean Laura Nelson? Sarah Nelson was a predator. Laura Nelson wasn't. Laura Nelson did some very wrong things, but not to be predatory. She did them out of fear. And no, I'm not making excuses for her. Her fears are fucking legit. Just like Molly's knee surgery is legit. But also, the point needs to be made that even with her knee surgery, it's been almost 2 years. No, I went to Molly Smith with that information in 2018, I think. Yep, she went in with me to talk to Officer Hahn, even though she knew that Officer Hahn was one of the deputies I was trying to turn in. She was certain that if she went in with me, that he would take it seriously and that he would investigate it. And she is, to this day, pissed off at Jared Hahn because he never investigated it. He came and asked her what she knew. She said that she didn't know anything. She went in there just so that I could make a report safely, and they didn't bother to ask anyone else. They didn't bother to go talk to Laura Nelson. They didn't make any effort to go to Laura Nelson about the situations. Now, whether or not Laura Nelson heard what was being said between myself and those individuals, so despite the fact that there's irrefutable evidence of these things, in these people's own words, with Molly Smith, yeah, I don't have her medical paperwork to show you about her knee. With James Payton, I don't have access to his medical paperwork to show that the medications that he's taking are legal. I don't have access to that. I don't. I have to go on based on the knowledge that I have of the situation and of him to make that judgment call. And it is a judgment at that point, just like your false accusations and judgments. Do I believe that Molly Smith is trying to irk her duties? No, I do not. She hasn't backtracked. She has made zero attempt to backtrack. Who backtracked? Everyone else. Molly Smith will admit that she went in with me to talk to Jared Hahn. Laura Nelson, will verify that in that situation, Jared Hahn never came and spoke to her. Scott DaCosta, when he went and talked to Laura Nelson, she can verify that Scott DaCosta was not asking about the crimes committed against me in his jurisdiction. He was asking her questions about Natalie that he could try to twist and manipulate into excuses for not doing his job. But how many of you are sharing that? See, it's not that people didn't have good intentions. Most of them didn't. I'll tell you that straight up. Most of them were curious, but most of them were playing nice because they were trying to help catch a predator. And some of them, they were trying to help frame me for things that didn't happen because they were angry with me over things that didn't happen. I never stalked Natalie Bollinger. Never. In Virginia, I was invited. Matter of fact, I was pressured under pain of her death if I didn't. What the cops and the Bollingers were allowed to do, there is irrefutable proof in their paperwork that the things that they claimed they couldn't do for me, they not only did those things for the Bollingers and their cronies and their co-workers, but they did it repeatedly. And in addition to doing those things that they claim they couldn't do for me because of the law, despite the fact that jurisdiction didn't matter with any of my predators, they could turn it in from any jurisdiction in the country. I get told that what's on the internet doesn't matter, but then they're allowed to use what's on the internet, aren't they? With Leslie Snell pretending like I'm a predator for posting up pictures of hers that she put up publicly on the internet. And then the judge wants to say that it's okay for people to cherry pick and twist stuff and all that because I put it on the internet. I put it up on the internet in its entirety, Your Honor, or Your Dishonor. Judge Derek C. Weimer. I posted it up in its entirety. I was prevented from showing evidence in court. I was prevented from safely going to your courtroom. Your officers threatened and harassed my little sister when I tried to get that shit turned in. And they threatened and harassed and intimidated me before and afterwards. They utilized the law to get away with the crimes they committed, and Derek C. Weimer literally committed felonies to help them. So did Joan Hansen. So did Polly Olson. Where's Polly Olson now? I want you to look up Polly Olson, Dual County Clerk. Tell me where she's at now. I want you to look up Sarah Nelson, Lincoln, Nebraska. I want you to tell me what it says. I want you to look up Wayland Lolatai, Boulder, Colorado. Tell me what it says. I want you to look up Wayland Lolatai, Denver, Colorado, and tell me what it says. I want you to look up the name Michelle Decini, Lincoln, Nebraska, and tell me what it says. I want you to look up the name, hold on a second, in Garden County, Nebraska. I want you to look up the name Michelle Quinn, Quinn. In addition, I want you to look up the name Demetrius Shankling. The two officers involved in his death were involved in assaults against me. They look slightly different in the pictures, but I've seen pictures since. Yeah. But you don't want to get the evidence. You just want to twist my words into something they're not. That safety issue and that safety risk was very real. Marcia Estrada's own conversation with me. This is a woman who is licensed to diagnose me as schizophrenic. And she is speaking up about her displeasure with the people that I'm telling you about that didn't do their jobs. She knows these people who didn't do their jobs. Irrefutable evidence that verifies that she does know these people. It's her own fucking words. Knowing those things, did Marcia Estrada try to come forward? The conversation with her shows that I explained exactly what my intent was. The conversations with her after I had to flee that portion of western Nebraska because she had done nothing and Penny Cooper had done nothing. And then I have had to flee that portion of the state. And then Marcia Estrada tells me that Penny Cooper is going to do her job again. No, she's not. No, she's not, Marcia. After you claimed that you were going to tell her she needed to do those things, she still went out of her way to show that she's not going to. And I was going to send those recordings to you, but since then you have backtracked and made every attempt to protect her from her wrongdoing, because she didn't do what she is mandated to do, both as an advocate and a mandated reporter, and because you didn't do what you are mandated to do as a mandated reporter. Marcia Estrada's words are now working against her. What did she claim in that? She claimed that I am not schizophrenic. She claimed that she is licensed to diagnose schizophrenia, and she says I'm not. What's one of the other excuses that the cops tried to use? Now, this one I was diagnosed with as a kid. Bipolar disorder. Of course, when you're in the system and you're being abused and you are screaming at the top of your lungs for help, yeah, whatever. By her own words, she was saying that PTSD and environmental issues. She admitted her own words, by her own words, my issues were environmental. That's exactly what I said from the very beginning. All of you guys wanted to push drugs on me and therapists, pretending that I didn't know my shit. I went to these therapists. Is an environmental issue something that can be cured with drugs? No, it's not. All you can do with drugs is pretend that it doesn't exist. If I am living out in freezing weather that's going to literally kill me, well, if you give me some booze and some muscle relaxers, I'm not going to feel a goddamn thing. It's not going to be cold at all. But guess what? You're still going to fucking freeze to death. Do I believe that Molly Smith will say the things that she said to me in court if she's allowed to do so? Absolutely. Do I believe she understands the gravity of the situation Absolutely not. If she had, even with her knee surgery, she would have made efforts through this entire time to keep in contact with me and to actually help me with the things that she said she was gonna. She was gonna try to help me get a lawyer. And no, she hasn't, so far as I see any evidence of. But that doesn't mean that she didn't. That doesn't mean that she never made any calls. That doesn't mean that she didn't make any efforts. But with us not communicating, of course, she is not trying not to communicate with me. It's not like she's telling me not to call her and not to contact her. And when I talked to her over at Pumpkin Pantry that day, she admitted, when I asked her about that evidence, she said she was going to bring it in. Is it my fault that she didn't bring it in? No. Now, am I making excuses for her for not bringing it in? No, whatever her reasons are. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she had a doctor's appointment. Maybe she got into a car accident. Maybe her son needed to go to the hospital. Maybe her significant other needed to go to the hospital. There are a great many things that could have happened. Now, the fact that she didn't keep her word is a fact. Now, if she's going to claim, and I don't believe she will, I don't think she's going to pretend that she didn't tell me that she was going to bring those things. I don't believe for one moment that she's going to try to pretend like it's my fault she didn't bring it in like she said she was going to. Life happens. Now, if she wants to pretend those things, well, yeah, there's a very different story. It's a very different situation, and absolutely I would be railing against her actions and her decisions. But unlike many of these others, she hasn't backtracked. She has not given me any indication at all, other than the non-communication, that she's not willing to try. Matter of fact, when we have communicated, she is giving me indications that she is. Now, when she didn't come forward and bring that evidence like she said she was gonna, am I a bad person for showing that that's the truth? Did I slander her name by posting up her words? You guys don't seem to understand the word slander. With Dan Faber, the fucked up shit that he did to me versus the situations that he was there for, and he was there for the situation he was treating me like shit for. He was ill-informed and didn't care and wanted an argument and figured, well, I'm going to take this person's side because, again, the popularity issue. You don't want to side with an autistic retard in any argument. They must be wrong. Dan Faber shows his assumption that I was wrong. Now, he kept on telling me he knew that I was right. He knew that I was right, but he never came forward with that. And then, of course, when he's angry with me, I must have been wrong. Riley Johnson telling me that I'm the most honest person that he knows, that I fought hard and so on and so forth, and this, that, and the other, and all of his bullshit. And then at the very end, what did he type at me? That because of what I had just said, he can't believe anything I ever said. So now he's wanting to go backtrack and pretend that everything that he had ever said to me is an absolute lie because I called him out for being a lying piece of shit, for being a self-centered fucking piece of shit. He only ever called me when nobody would fucking listen to him and he wanted to complain about his own shit. And I get that, and I listened to him, but when I tried to call him, he was too depressed. He couldn't because of this, and he couldn't because of that. And he would tell me things like, well, let's talk to each other every day. Call me every day. And I called him every day. And he kept on ignoring me. And he's posting up on his Facebook all this fun shit that he's doing. And then he wants to tell me, he wants to type at me, that the reason that he hasn't bothered to answer the phone, that I'm being a piece of shit by not answering the phone, I'm being a piece of shit if I don't answer immediately. But if he ignores me, I'm also being a piece of shit when he asked me to call him. That I'm being a piece of shit because when he didn't answer, I treated him the way that he treated me. Hey, dude, I did call you. I did try to contact you. As soon as I was able to see the phone, to see that you had called, I got in contact with you immediately to let you know, first of all, that I had missed it, and second of all, that I'm here. I didn't ignore you for 6 months. I didn't go on a fucking binge and go fucking partying and then pretend like you were the bad guy. Well, you went on a binge and were partying, and then you wanted to pretend like you couldn't hardly type a message. You couldn't press one button on your phone, the button to answer it. You couldn't press that one button. But you can go partying and pretend and posting about this partying and pretend like you don't have the ability to press one button. Meanwhile, you can type full sentences and take pictures on that goddamn phone. Riley Johnson, I posted up the evidence, what was it, yesterday? Of the harassment post prior to Natalie's death from someone pretending to be Natalie, or pretending to be Riley Johnson. Now, if Molly Smith made any attempt to backtrack, I would be all over it, and you know it. I sure as fuck pounced on Meg Misgatus. Whew. That fucking hurt. Wynn tried to shove my door into the car next to me. I had to slam it shut. That fucking hurt like a son of a bitch. So I lost the topic I was speaking on. I should probably end this video. I'm posting this stuff on my Facebook as fast as I can and as often as I can, as I have the ability to do so. Most of the time I only have the ability to speak. And thank goodness I have the ability to speak, even if nobody hears me. At least I can say I tried, which is more than I can say for any of the rest of these people. Did they actually try? And when? Did they make literally zero effort to try these things until it was too late? And then try it, and then throw it in my face that they'd made the effort? Or had they been making the effort the whole time? When the police said that people wouldn't help me, probably because of the way that I act, no, people had been trying to help me. I was being cut off from that help, and the way that I was acting is because I was being abused and cut off from help. False charges and locking me up in the jails cuts me off from help and takes away the evidence. Taking me to the hospital and doing the same thing prevents me from getting help, cuts me off from that help, and also removes the evidence. The public calling everything spam over and over and over again cut me off from help and cut me off from evidence, cut me off from showing that evidence, just like locking me up in jail does. Just like taking me to the hospital does. And then it's their word versus mine. The officer says I'm delusional. I say I'm not. I don't have the evidence that shows that the officer is lying, so I must be wrong. It is assumed that I am wrong because, again, no guardian, no advocate, nobody present, just me. Miss Peaches did go to a court date with me. She had a picture of her taken in that court date. And she wanted to treat me like shit because like I was the one who had taken pictures of her. And I said, well, put you at risk. She said it won't do any good. Now, did she tell the public that it wouldn't do any good? Did she tell the police it wouldn't do any good? Did she tell these other people I was in contact with that it wouldn't do any good? Miss Peaches and Alyssa Rainwater not coming forward, forcing me to record those situations recording the fact that, yes, while I was in jail and Mandy Singer and Alyssa Rainwater were going to try to help get in contact with Miss Peaches because I was cut off. Well, guess what? I recorded them afterwards admitting those things. I recorded these people admitting to all of the things that the police were claiming I was schizophrenic for saying. All of the things that they told mental health workers. And all of the things that they told judges. That those things were outright lies. You getting angry at me because I made the same claims about you as the police did. And calling me a liar. And then listing all of the things that you did, that I said that you did, that I claimed that you did, that the cops argued and claimed didn't happen, claimed that I was schizophrenic, claimed that I was delusional, claimed that you don't exist, claimed that nobody was trying to help me, that nobody had tried to help me, that I had imagined these things. Irrefutable proof. But guess what? Those people who claimed that they were going to help me didn't bother to actually put in effort the way that the Bollingers and the people who hated me over that slander continue to hate me over that slander, have victimized me repeatedly over that slander. And you're going to say I slandered you by saying it. Well, if it's slander when I said it, it's slander when the cops wrote it down on my fucking paperwork, you dumb son of a bitch. It's not that I didn't try, it's that you're a fucking liar. Did you like that? Stroll along. Know your role and maintain your brain. Paula Johnson typed, "This is very interesting. Keep telling the truth. Is this video up tomorrow or just live? Here in Sweden, it's close to midnight and I'm sleepy, but I really would like to see a lot tomorrow." They're always up. These are public. Kaihu Valley Chur. Merm the Kai Hooligan. You know what? I don't care about you hooligans any more than I care about Manchester United. At this point, the Kaihu Valley Chur thing is, it's like, alright, this person, it's like a sports slogan, basically. You know what a hooligan is, right? These are people who like British football or rugby. And they go to these events and these games and they just fucking trash the place. That's a hooligan. It's a British thing, but this person, MRRM, who changed their name from MRRM to MRRM the Cahooligan, they changed their name just within the last couple of days to add the Cahooligan to it. Is still putting up the Kaihu Valley Chur, and of course the word hooligan is there. Yesterday when I made that video and MRRM was typing in there, I explained how rude it was, the whole Manchester United, yeah! You know, and a mother is telling you about how her child is missing and she's trying to help find her missing child. This is a similar situation. This is a very serious situation. The last thing that you need is some hooligan getting on there and screaming, Manchester United, or Broncos for the Super Bowl. So, of course, to reflect that, this person added the name Cahooligan to the end of it and continues with the chanting. This has got nothing to do with the situation and nothing to do with the scenario. I don't give a fuck about Manchester United. Now, this person's from New Zealand, but still, their name reflects what it is that I was saying to them about how rude they were being the other day. And of course, here they are still doing it. That's called trolling and antagonizing. Paula Johnson type, take care now. I will look at the rest tomorrow. No, you won't. No, you won't. If you watched all of my videos back to back, you'd be looking for about 3 to 5 months. But I've done a lot of talking. Paula Johnson type, thanks for answering. Good night. Good night, Paula. Be safe. She typed, take care now. I will look at the rest. Oh, wait. It reverted. Let's see. Take a screenshot of it so there's proof. All right. Screenshot taken. Not that anyone's going to look at the evidence. They're just going to call me mentally ill and say that I didn't try. If you let it happen to your neighbor, you don't get to complain when it happens to you. Martin Niemöller, When They Came. Look that poem up.